online shopping tips for the holidays, investment funds entering the Monero space, and Wi-Fi naming ideas. Welcome to the Q&A for episode 201, where we answer questions from our amazing patrons who allow us to keep making this podcast for all of you. You can view and join the questions on patreon.com/surveillancepod or xmrchat.com/surveillancepod. Our first question is going to come from our classic commenter, David Johnson, who has a two-part question about privacy in online shopping for physical goods. So this is not, sometimes you buy like a license or a software, video, something online where you can put in any billing information, especially with services like privacy.com, and it doesn't really matter because nobody's sending you anything. But in this case, it does matter because you want to get the thing you're sent. So part one is, how do you pursue personal data privacy when shopping on sites other than big retailers like Amazon, Walmart, and Target? And what do you think the privacy trade-offs are? So for example, he cites large companies can probably afford better security and they're more reputable, so they can be more trusted in the sense that you're actually going to get the goods. They're not just going to run off with your card number, but they're also a lot more likely to collect and sell your data. And because they are bigger, they are definitely more attractive targets for cyber criminals. First of all, I would be remiss if I didn't say buying in person is best. A lot of the time, I will look stuff up on like Target, for example, but then I will check and see like, is it in a store near me? And if it is, I'll just go and get it. You get it same day. I can pay in cash, all that fun stuff. But let's assume it's something that is not in stock. The other obvious thing is there something comparable that is in stock? But I'm kind of picky. That's one of the reasons I like online shopping. I can get exactly what I want, the color, the size, the brand, whatever. So, of course, we mentioned payment masking services like privacy.com. There's also alias emailing like, Simple Login or Addy. Those are great ways to protect your data from data breaches and things like that. As far as protecting yourself in the real world, David talks about like the challenges with using fake names. I don't know about you guys. I see a lot of people say like, oh, I have like 12 different names getting delivered to my house. I have issues with USPS. They are happy to give me the wrong mail constantly. But for some reason, if I purposely put the wrong name on there, they're like, well, this isn't you. That hasn't stopped you the last 5 years from giving me the wrong person's information. But for some reason, you keep doing it. I have a P.O. box, and I'm happy to hand that out because my threat model is like doxing, for example. So I don't care if you have the P.O. box. You can send them pizzas all day. That's their problem. Private mailboxes have definitely been the best in my experience because so I have a P.O. box and a private mailbox. The P.O. box, when I started receiving mail as Nate and The New Oil, they wanted like actual documentation, like proof of a business. Private mailboxes, when I signed up, they were like, are there any other names you want to add on here? And I was like, sure. Nate, The New Oil, this person. They're like, cool, got him. They don't care. They absolutely do not care. You could also ship to an office if you're like in a position where that's an option. Again, it kind of comes down to your threat model. You're talking about like surveillance capitalism. Okay, but where? Like, are you worried that there's going to be a data breach that is going to leak your home address publicly? Are you worried about getting spam in your box, which for some reason my P.O. box still gets almost no spam? Except for right now with the election, there's a crap ton of spam, things like that. So
on my end, I pretty much try to develop a trustless model. So I don't really care too much about privacy or security when I order sites because I have a private mailbox and I just use a random name and I use privacy.com cards. And in those situations, it doesn't really matter if it's a privacy respecting service or if they have good security. I've had a couple of my privacy.com cards in data breaches now. And every time I go, oh, okay, that's fine. It's locked to the merchant that I bought it from. So I just saw the transaction that went through and I go, cool. So I just don't really care too much because fortunately I have all the tools that I set up before I order things for it not to be a problem. One advantage for larger companies is that they normally have gift cards that you can get just for that individual company. So you can get Amazon gift cards, Target gift cards, Walmart, etc. But they might also be a little bit more particular about the kind of information you can give them. I know some of the sites might not be happy if you give them privacy.com card, simple login, address, my pseudo number, etc. So those are kind of my thoughts. I actually don't have much of an issue with this right now in my life. And I think that as long as you have the tools to do it, it's not a huge issue for most people from what I've been able to tell.
And the second part of the question is, what methods do you know of and what methods do you use to shop anonymously, not from the state, but from corporate surveillance for physical goods? And I think we kind of answered that one. Yeah. So I use privacy.com, simple login, or again, Addy. There's a lot of different choices out there. And same thing with the payment. On thenewoil.org, we list a bunch of different payment masking options that are offered around the world.
I have stumbled on like one or two websites that didn't take something, but I was able to find the same product on a different site that didn't give me issues. The only people that actually, I think I mentioned this before, the only thing I could not order was that like Stutterheim rain jacket. It was just impossible. I don't know why. I just couldn't do it, and I ended up giving up. And I just waited till I went to Europe and just got one myself in person. So there's very few brands that you can't get something in person to if you really are dedicated. But that's not why I went to Europe.
I do have to add, though, you used Lubbock Vegan Metalcore Enthusiast Club as an example in one part of your question. Sign me up, man. Hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Next question is from XMR Chat. So these are people that just sent us some Monero tips, which is super appreciated. And this one is someone who said they were at a conference recently and some insiders told them there's a major new private investment fund who learned about Monero last year and will be announcing that they're entering the Monero ecosystem in early 2025. Have you heard anything about this? My answer to that is no, I haven't. And I really have much to say about it, actually. But if it's true, that's cool. But I also feel like Monero community's like, I don't know, the least money interested community. You know, it's still important to a lot of people, but I think a lot of more people in the Monero community care about the tech. The number go up. So I guess it'll be interesting, but I haven't heard anything about this. So thanks for the heads up. And I guess we'll see if it's true.
I'm even less connected to the Monero community than Henry is. I haven't heard anything about this, but I kind of feel the same as Henry. Like, is this a problem necessarily? Like, unless there's some kind of like conflict of interest, like they're planning to like buy a stake in the Monero team, which you can't even do because it's not a publicly traded entity. Like, I don't really see, unless I'm missing something, please, by all means, let me know if there's like something I'm overlooking. But to me, it's like, if anything, this is a win because it'll make Monero a little bit more mainstream and a little bit more valuable. And okay, that's me talking selfishly there.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not understanding what they mean by entering the ecosystem. Because if they're entering the ecosystem and as in they're just buying Monero and utilizing it, then that's very different than a company getting involved in like the actual Monero project. That's a totally different discussion. So,
all right, and this last question was a private chat question, which we do appreciate you, but we're not really sure. And I mean this in the most appreciative way possible. We're not really sure what the point of private questions are in terms of this context of like XMR chat and joining the Q&A and stuff, because we have no way to like reach out to you directly and answer your question. So what we're going to do is we're going to paraphrase the question and obviously not name the name you chose to go by. So basically this person says that there's websites where you can look up the SSID, which for those who don't know is like the name of your Wi-Fi. They wonder if this is a good argument for giving your Wi-Fi some kind of generic name that makes it harder for people to look up. First of all, stop naming your Wi-Fi FBI surveillance van. You're not clever. I've been to a lot of apartment complexes and there's always at least one. Please stop. It's so cringe. Number two, yeah, I definitely would avoid naming. True story. When I was in the military, I lived in the barracks. And one night, somebody knocked on my door because in the military, you have to have, or at least where I was, I really hope this isn't doxing myself, where I was, you have to put like basically a little paper in your window that says like who's in that room. And somebody came knocking on my door one time because I used to name it after my last name. So it was just like Bartram or Bartram Wi-Fi or something. And somebody came and knocked on the door. And when I opened it, it was this stranger I'd never seen. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, hey, and he has a laptop in his hand. He goes, hey, are you Bartram? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, hey, can I use your Wi-Fi? And I'm like, no. And the guy like, was like, oh, okay. Like left. But I'm like, what? So yeah, ever since then, I've been I used to hide my Wi-Fi, but now I know that it's actually like really easy to find your SSID, even if it's hidden. You can hide it if you want. It doesn't matter either way. My advice is to give it a very generic name. Do not name it like apartment 203 or, Smith family Wi-Fi. Like just give it something really generic, like, my Wi-Fi or what I've actually started doing. And I don't know how much this matters, but what I've started doing is here in the US, we usually only have two choices of internet and they both usually suck. And what I do is I will look up the other person. So let's say the choices are Verizon and Spectrum. And let's say I'm going with Verizon. I will find out what Spectrum's default router name is, and that's what I will name my Wi-Fi. So if Spectrum's default router name is like, all right, I just had to look it up. AT&T actually. So AT&T's default Wi-Fi name, according to Brave, is ATT6R8KFTK. So that's what I would name my Wi-Fi when I'm actually going with the other person. Again, I don't think that really matters, but I think it does, provide that little bit of disinformation. The only thing I can objectively say does matter is we've covered this story before. If you add _nomap to the end of your Wi-Fi hotspot, it prevents Apple and Google from reporting the location of that hotspot. But then also there's a good argument to be made there of like, now you kind of stand out a little bit more. I don't know. It's a very, it's tricky. I don't really have any good perfect answers here, but I think, yeah, definitely avoid anything obvious, like your name, where you live. Oh, and your phone number as the password. I've seen that a lot over the years too. A lot of residences, when I go there and I'm like, hey, what's your password? It's the person's phone number. So avoid that too.
Yeah, I don't have too much. I think that this is something that probably doesn't have to impact very many people. I'd say it's probably a larger concern for content creators, public figures who are like broadcasting their SSIDs and their content. That's probably something a little bit more concerning to them. But I honestly think for the average home user, the only people who are going to see their SSID are people who are near their house. Those are kind of my thoughts here in terms of like who should be concerned about this or even thinking about it. And I think that Nate's kind of suggestions would apply to anybody who's concerned about it, is my take on this.
While we're on this discussion, thenewoil.org, on the front page, if you scroll down to the bottom, I have some like quick start guides. I have one about home networks and it talks about some of this stuff. And also, like update your router regularly in VLANs and just, might be worth a look. That is all our questions this week. Kind of a short week. I mean, we answered questions for like an hour and a half last week. So, probably a welcome break at this point. But yeah, we had some online shopping tips with the holidays coming up. We had some questions about investment funds in the Monero space and some Wi-Fi tips. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everyone who asked questions. We appreciate them and we appreciate you and your support for the podcast. If you're not already on Patreon and you want to join and ask a question, you can do so at patreon.com/surveillancepod. Or again, if you just want to ask one-off question or you don't trust Patreon, we have xmrchat.com/surveillancepod. Both of those links will be in the show notes. We appreciate all your support and go ahead and leave your questions and make sure to tune in for episode 202 this coming weekend.